I'm Billy S, welcome back to the channel. Today we're readying up because Handler Walter's got a mission for us, as I rank my top 10 favourite Armored Core 6 missions. Unlike the Souls games, Armored Core's gameplay loop is tied to completing various missions given to you throughout the game. You can replay them to get S ranks, and the general loop involves destroying enemy mechs, exploring large locations for hidden items and objectives, and taking on dangerous bosses. Speaking of, I recently ranked every single boss in Armored Core 6, so if you're interested in that topic, click the video link in the description. And if you're watching this in the far future, I also have an Armored Core 6 worst missions ranking. That will be linked down below as well once it's uploaded. Fair warning though, I won't be including any missions whose sole objective is a single boss fight. For as much as I adore Destroy the Ice Worm, Bring Down the Xylem, and Shut Down the Closure Satellites, it's just not what I want to rank here. Destroy the Weaponized Mining Ship and Underground Exploration Depth 1 are fair game though, since their bosses are also full-on levels in their own right. And honourable mention goes to Operation Wall Climber. It's one of the most important plot missions in the game and narratively works incredibly well, but the first half is just so boring to me, and most of my hype comes from the boss fight at the end. Sorry, not sorry. With all that being said, let's jump right in. My top 10 Armored Core 6 missions, ranked. Let me know your favourite missions down below. At number 10, we have Tunnel Sabotage, a Chapter 3 mission from Darfung, who order 621 to infiltrate the abandoned Engebret Tunnel and destroy a sensor that the PCA are planning to repair. It's all in the aim of distracting them, but little do we know, there's a twist in the plan. Making your way through the abandoned cave isn't much of an issue, the PCA have some security mechs set up throughout, but none of which are prepared to handle a full frontal assault from an AC. In fact, us appearing is a complete shock to the soldiers here. There's a sniper mech you can kill for a combat log with a chest behind them containing a weapon part, but overall, the journey down the main tunnel isn't fraught with any real dangers. Maybe those small insectoid mechs that discharge electricity around them, I found them a little tough on my first playthrough, but you'll eventually reach the target, walk through the shield, and destroy the sensor. That's the end of the mission then. Except it isn't. The explosion causes a deadly coral surge that threatens to engulf the entire mine, and it's up to us to race our way back the way we came to the entrance. The challenge comes from the bursts of coral that shoot out as you approach. You have to play cautiously, but not too much so, as you'll be constantly losing AP while within the cavern. Touch a coral stream and you'll take heavy damage, if not fatal damage, and it's a lot suddenly thrust on the player. I love it. Missions where it goes off without a hitch until it doesn't, and suddenly everyone is scrambling to find their footing as you race to safety, the looming threat of a coral explosion mere moments behind. I really appreciate those little moments. They're what make a mission memorable, and for me, that's enough to get this little tunnel operation into my top 10. At number 9, we have Breach the Carmen Line, the penultimate Chapter 5 mission for the Fires of Raven ending. The Arquebus fleet is approaching, and all that's left is to take them down and crash into the vascular plant. And our goal is to fly along the skies, powered by the coral, to take down as many warships as we can. In terms of gameplay, this is a pure power fantasy, as you can assault boost for an unlimited amount of time, and by this point in the game, you know how to take down the warships, so you'll be dodging through attacks and slicing your way through the fleet. I love the flavor of you and Carla attempting to outdo each other with the ships you take down. It's a relaxing change of pace, especially as Air is no longer around to provide support. The vista is gorgeous, reminiscent, and I mean this in the best way, of one of the final levels of Sonic Heroes. If you get the reference, you get the reference. Now, while the objective of this mission is straightforward, it is bolstered by a fitting final duel against Steel Haze Ortus Rusty, right as you take down the last of the fleet. He's here to stop you from burning Rubicon to the ground, and so you battle to his brilliant OST as he attempts to stop you. It's not a hard fight, but with the context of where the story is at, and Rusty being the fan favorite he is, it feels like a fitting conclusion to the mission. Plus, the way he terminal armors after the slow motion finishing effect, tricking the player into thinking he was dead so he can wail on them one last time, was a masterful stroke of genius. I won't be replaying this mission looking for a tough challenge, but if I ever need to take down some warships while looking cool doing so, Breach the Carmen lines got me covered, and that's all I need. At number 8, we have the sole All-Mind mission on this list, MIA. Only accessible on New Game++ following the Alia Iacta Est ending, MIA sees you going backwards through Watchpoint Alpha, taking down any mechs that stand in your way as you're officially an enemy to every faction. Arquebus, the PCA, Balaam, even Handler Walter. Your only ally is All-Mind, and you have to reach the Nepenthes platform to gain safety. What I love so much about MIA is how brutal it feels for every character other than yourself. There are soldiers found throughout from other factions who are genuinely terrified, fearful for their lives, knowing that they're about to die to the robot uprising. There's the giant fiery gas explosion right before you reach the last bridge before the Iguazu cold call room that Air has to warn you about, giving you just enough time to veer back before getting toasted like a marshmallow. Or how about the 2 boss fights in this mission against G6 Red and V3 Pater? Both of them were contacts for you as you did jobs for Schneider and Darfung earlier in the game, and now you're forced to destroy them both. With Red, it's due to his own paranoia overcoming him, forcing him to turn on us after seeing the horrors of war, while with Pater, All-Mind orders his execution and there's nothing else for it. It hurts extra bad as he's not in his usual AC, meaning he's far squishier and easier to destroy. From a story perspective, it feels like we're ascending from hell itself, and that makes Raven a more formidable character to the rest of the cast as a result. There just isn't another mission in the game that shows the hopelessness of Armored Core 6's main conflict, and that's why I feel MIA really stands out among the greats. At number 7, we have Attack the Dam Complex from Chapter 1. After being sent on some rather basic missions, like destroying artillery, fighting a tester AC, or clearing out one room of enemies, suddenly getting told you're attacking a dam complex and you have allies is eye-opening in the early game. I was starting to get a little bored of the simple missions, so getting a full-scale assault was a real treat. You start by taking out 2 nearby stations and the enemies around them, with the goal being to destroy all the power supplies across the dam. We're introduced to Gun 4 Volta, who we'll never see again, don't worry, and Gun 5 Iguazu, who we'll wish we'd never see again, worry. It's really Michigan that provides the comedy as you're blowing up MTs and splitting off to tackle different portions of the dam. There's a hidden tetrapod MT you can destroy for an early combat log, which I missed on my first run, and towards the end of the mission you face off against AC Burn Pickaxe Index Dunham. It eases you into the concept of fighting a proper AC pilot, as this one can use repair kits and you have allies to help split the aggro. It's a teaching moment that also gives you a nice climax to the mission as you take on tougher and tougher threats until you defeat Burn Pickaxe and destroy the last of the power stations, although he is optional. But this mission has extra importance, as in New Game Plus, you can choose to betray the Red Guns near the beginning, leading to a 2 AC boss fight against Volta and Iguazu that unlocks a whole host of new Lubricon, no! I'm keeping that in. That unlocks a whole host of new Rubicon Liberation Front missions for you to take part in. I love that there's choice here, and on New Game Plus, betraying the Red Guns takes on a new meaning after you've gotten context about Balaam and the Red Guns' forces. Just a really solid Chapter 1 mission that I was happy to see had a lot more depth than initially expected. At number 6, we have Illegal Entry, the first mission of the game. Perhaps an odd choice, as it very much acts as a tutorial for the basic controls, but one that I think has a lot of charm and character, and is one of the lengthier missions in the early game. Here you're forced to use the default AC setup, which is fine on your first run, but when you're going to S-rank the mission, it really puts your skills to the test as you can't rely on fancy new Zimmermans or stud needle cannons to win the day. Instead, you have to apply everything you've learned, but with that original mech, and I found it super fun. The majority of the mission is spent wailing on small MTs that can barely do a dent to 621's AP, but the progression from the top of the grid, to being launched towards the contaminated city, to scavenging the wreckages and taking on MT squads for an ID is just a really great opening setup. I felt myself getting into the role of this unnamed mercenary, forced to find an ID as quickly as possible so I could continue my work on Rubicon, ultimately discovering the Raven ID atop a wreckage on the raised platform of the city, and it is here where this mission truly earns its keep. The boss fight against the helicopter is an opening challenge that presents new players with a simple conundrum. Can you beat me? If yes, awesome. If no, you're not playing the rest of the game. There's no way to level up, no way to change parts, no way to cheese the system. You have to beat this boss, and the only way to do so is to get to grips with the mechanics. Assault boosting into the air to hit the copter, plasma blading it with melee to build up stagger, using the buildings as cover. The contaminated city is reused multiple times in Chapter 1 for other missions, but nowhere does it feel more correct than here in Illegal Entry. And no matter how many times I return to this arena, I'll always remember the helicopter battle that brought me into the world of Armored Core. Oh my god, it's March already? And we're getting closer to my goal of 20,000 subscribers by the summer of 2024. Insert obligatory YouTuber, look at how many of you aren't subscribed comment here. If by the end of the video you enjoy what you watch, consider parrying that subscribe button to stay up to date on all of my future videos. Back to our regularly scheduled programming. At number 5, we have Destroy the Weaponized Mining Ship from Chapter 1. This is one of those missions where the developers were able to blend spectacle and gameplay, while giving the player a true rush of adrenaline at the prospect of taking down something so gargantuan. The Strider is both a boss and a level, requiring various stages to bring it down and take home victory. There's the chase across the dunes, a sandstorm ravaging your sight as you roughly head in the direction of the beast. As you start to get within range, it charges its gigantic eye laser which fires in your direction. A simple dodge will avoid failure, but it can be hard to time when you're not sure what to expect. My favourite moment is when you destroy the leg up close to cause the Strider to kneel down, allowing you to climb. It's so reminiscent of a Shadow of the Colossus Colossi, where you stab their weak point with a sword to make them kneel down. Only here, it's a giant mechanical mech. If you're standing underneath the wreckage as it falls though, you will instantly die, hilarious every time. Once you're on the Strider, it becomes a bit more video gamey, asking you to destroy power generators on the bottom, sides, and top of the machine. And it's here where I had to remind myself of the mission title. It's a weaponized mining ship. It's still just a mining ship, it's not outfitted to the gods with guns. They really relied on that eye laser to carry them to victory. So zipping around, smashing the generators, doing the anti-Dead by Daylight, only to then destroy the eye in a heartbeat is actually making sense here. On the one hand, you could say it's because the Strider isn't a very strong threat. On the other hand, it says a lot about just how powerful ACs are in this universe. Watching the Strider explode from a distance is some of the most satisfying gameplay footage I've seen in a long time. I just keep thinking, I was standing up there a few moments ago when I see it fall. And it hits all the notes for a good old power fantasy. Ignoring all the dead Rubiconians, I'm sure Rusty won't mind. At number 4, we have Underground Exploration Depth 2, a Chapter 4 mission that sees 621 delving deeper into Watchpoint Alpha. While in MIA we're working to escape this watchpoint, our initial survey sees us working our way in, attempting to override various control panels to unlock the path to the boss. The first few tunnels are pretty straightforward. You'll face a few Balaam MTs, some of whom will try to ambush you now that you're working on your own to progress through the watchpoint. You've got to hack a control panel to unlock a door on the upper level, and there's also a couple weapon chests to collect here with parts for your AC, so you gotta keep an eye out. Entering the midpoint of the level, you'll be attacked by either Iguazu on your first playthrough, or Cold Call if you betrayed the Red Guns in New Game Plus. Both of them are decently challenging fights for this point in the game and provide a nice narrative. Either you're finishing off Iguazu, who's gone mad by being sent down here alone, or you're taking out an assassin sent by Iguazu, further enraging the Red Gun, much to 621's joy. The second half of the level is more exploration focused, as you'll be sniped at by the Enforcer, the main target of this mission. I love when bosses get to play a small role in the level progression, and following the mech down the chasm, across bridges, until it locks itself behind another door is a little fun journey. Then you get to explore further down until you reach a maintenance shaft, filled with those annoying electric bug enemies, before boosting through a vent into another area with a control panel which will open the path to the boss. It's the same mechanic as the start of the level, except enemies will only attack you after you've hacked the panel, so you've got to fight your way out. The Enforcer boss is also one of the best balanced encounters in the game, featuring a ranged and melee mode, utilizing very distinct weapons, and even having a half-health enraged state where it can create shockwaves with its laser weapons. It's such an incredibly sleek design, and caps off depth 2 in a perfect way. At number 3, we have Attack the Watchpoint, the final mission of Chapter 1. Something you'll note about most of my top missions is that they focus on entirely unique maps to explore, have a solid beginning, middle, and end structure to them, and challenge the player in ways that some of the more basic missions just can't really handle. Airlifted in, our goal is to attack this waterlocked watchpoint and destroy the central generator, and immediately the setting conveys such a unique atmosphere, stormy weather under the cloud of night, a stealthy operation as we pick our way through the MTs scattered about. We're to leave no survivors, so we're destroying artillery cannons, wrecking the regular mooks, and pushing our way deeper into the facility. I like the segment with the sniper cannons that you have to assault boost towards. It provides a nice tension as you wreck the rest of the forces, until you're finally able to progress to the main watchpoint. From this point on though, it is boss after boss. Sula starts us off, the toughest AC the player will have faced thus far, with quite the interesting backstory with Volta's prior hounds. His build was durable, and the arena makes for a lot of levels, meaning you've got to position yourself accordingly. His alternate fight variant with the All-Mind mechs is much less exciting though, as I just cannot stand those putas. Snipers on top of a tough AC fight does not make me a happy camper, but I can always take on the regular mission if I want to instead, so it's not a big problem. And then the Bolteus is one of the best bosses in the game, a great ending set piece following the choral explosion that awakened air, as our new companion helps us to overcome this raging mechanical missile launcher. They don't hesitate to throw some tough challenges at the player for the ending of Chapter 1, and it was one of the first missions where I truly felt a sense of difficulty that I'd heard about from these games. A fun mission, I don't mind replaying it again and again, but there are two more I prefer that bit more. At number 2, we have Reach the Choral Convergence, the final mission of Chapter 4. Here we're introduced to the wreckage of Institute City, the closest we've come to a true modern metropolis on Rubicon, and it's our goal to fight through the Arquebus fleet to make it to the vascular plant. First on the list, taking care of Metalink and Wu Huahai in a dual AC battle that isn't particularly hard gameplay-wise, but serves as a nice narrative function as it shows just how conniving V2 Snail is that he'd abandoned one of his most loyal soldiers to die, and it's a nice warm-up for what comes next. If you're playing the alternate version of this mission, you then head into the sewers and get to go kill Snail and Iguazu, but I'm not really focusing on that, I'm focusing on the original playthrough. Once you reach the lake, if you want to collect every combat log and hidden chest, you'll have to take on all of Armored Core 6's equivalent to the Dark Souls Bone Wheel skeletons. If you've got homing missiles and the ability to stay in the air, you'll likely have a really good time here. I love the design of these enemies, gigantic wheels that feel so different to everything else in the game. And they guard the Moonlight Greatsword of Armored Core 6, a staple of FromSoftware's games. The 2 extra combat log mechs down there are also a nice challenge, tough on a first go, but once you know they're there, it's possible to sneak up on them for massive damage. I really love the aesthetics of this ruined city, crossing the giant bridge and heading up to face more mechs on your way to the giant lake at its center. While there's not much in terms of gameplay beyond destroying random MTs here, that's fine, because you're being prepped to take on the toughest challenge in the game. The Ibis series 2-face boss fight that guards the Choral is easily the battle that cost me the most lives in my playthrough. It took me hours to figure out how to overwhelm the mosquito of a mech. Ranged melee attacks, crossblades, Choral drone lasers, a phase 2 featuring a giant manta ray attack, it has it all. This boss fight elevates what's already an interesting mission and brings it to crazy levels of fun. And in any other circumstance, this would make this my favorite mission in the game, but you know what? I'm a simple man. At number 1, we have Infiltrate Grid 086, the first mission of Chapter 2, and the introduction of Best Girl Cinder Carla and the R&D division. We faced a few lengthy missions up to this point, the Dam Complex, Operation Wall Climber, and the Ocean Watch Point, yet it feels like Grid 086 is a whole different beast. The mission starts off with you boosting across a large bridge, destroying MTs until you reach a hangar where you're ambushed by Honest Brute. He's the weakest of the AC pilots, meaning you can take him out without any concern, but his character is really fun. His AC design is unique as it's made from the scrap of the R&D division, and he has a chainsaw. Then, after defeating him, you're introduced to Carla, and the mission really opens up. Yes, you can progress to the inside part of the level, but hidden nearby are 2 Baus Tetrapod MTs containing combat logs, plus an extra hidden MT combat log that even official guides manage to miss. If you explore around here, you're sure to find stuff of interest. The inside has you working your way through vents and ducts, hacking doorways, and even getting into a fight in a hidden room with Nossack, an AC pilot in a lot of debt. He's a fun optional fight with a hilarious concept and is surprisingly well hidden down an exhaust pipe. The last portion of the mission is this climb up to Carla's main fortress, with more combat logs available along the sides of the area, while at the top you're greeted by a series of mechs and some lovely fireworks in the form of explosive canisters dropped onto the battlefield. I actually think the shield mech here is quite tough, and he even provided me trouble on my repeat playthroughs. All of this capped off with a fun fight against the Smart Cleaner, a very unique boss that requires you to switch up your build to succeed, an aspect of Armored Core that I understand is quite important. It was the boss I died to most outside of the Ibis series. Those saws can decimate your AP, and it requires a ton of strategy to defeat with its 2 distinct weak points, each with their own pros and cons. No other mission in the game makes full use of every mechanic in Armored Core to create a story from start to finish, and Carla ends up setting up such a high bar that future missions can only dream of overcoming it. Good on you, sis. And that's my list. Which Armored Core missions were your favorite from the 6th game? Let me know down below, and be sure to parry that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all of my future videos. Next week, I'll be talking about the worst missions in the game, so if you want to see me rage, that is definitely something to tune into. My social medias are on screen now. Feel free to follow where you feel comfortable. I recommend my Twitter, my Blue Sky, or my Discord. I'm mainly active on my Twitter, but honestly, as long as you're subscribed to the channel, you're good. A quick note, I have the Bloodborne Community Rankings poll up at the moment. It will be up for another week before I close it, so if you want to get your difficulty boss ranking opinions in, links down below. A massive shout out to my YouTube channel members for supporting me for a month. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. It's $4.99. You get access to my Tuesday videos 24 hours early, and you get your name in the description and at the end of the video. And a shout out to my patrons as well. I will be phasing Patreon out very soon, but for now, that is all I have to say. I'm gonna go rest because my throat is sore, and I'll see you next time. Adios.